I do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. Excerpt: U.S. Army Oath of Enlistment. Hey everyone, I did not want to make this video. However, dangerous dipshits, some of whom are video content creators that I support and respect, have forced my hand. Unfortunately, the potato culling may very well reach pandemic levels. By the end of this video, global GMO potato farmers may be envious. In case you've been living under a rock, you probably heard that the social media tech giants got together and deplatformed Alex Jones and Infowars. This censorship was clearly done in a well-coordinated fashion. Now, I've read multiple conservative news outlet responses and watched a few video content creator responses as well. While I completely agree with their condemnation of these acts, these intelligent and well-educated news outlets and video content creators are missing the most important implications of the social media censorship of Alex Jones. But before we get to that, let me start out by addressing social media tech giants. I cannot believe it. You guys just martyred Alex Jones. Really? The frogs are gay? Alex Jones? I mean, what the fuck? Further, in so doing, you just gave your competition at Bitchute, Minds.com, Gab.ai, and every other conservative media outlet the smoking gun they need to destroy you. Good job. Your narcissism and social justice megalomania have just destroyed your brands and your profitability. Didn't the recent near 20% stock market drop of Facebook and Twitter because of censorship teach you idiots anything? Apparently not. Like the feminist and the social justice communist cucks you are, your only go-to solution is to double down, which, pro tip, never works, as you're about to find out. Now, with that public service announcement out of the way, let's move on, shall we? So, why was Alex Jones censored? Well, the excuse was hate speech. But the reality is much different. Infowars reported recently that Google was planning on launching a highly censored search engine in China and was using censorship of conservatives in the United States to beta test it. And big tech lost their shit. Now, to frame this issue as social media tech giants deplatforming YouTuber Alex Jones is to ignore the verifiable facts and the brutally observable reality of this situation. Yet, this is what every YouTube content creator has done. Further, many of these highly intelligent and well-educated content creators are advocating for social media tech giants to be classified as public utilities, which is probably the most idiotic thing I've ever heard. Let me explain why. The biggest complaint these content creators have is that social media tech giants have monopolistic control over their mediums. Now, this is absolutely true. So, with that in mind, why would anyone with two brain cells to rub together give these social media tech giants government-sanctioned monopolies over their mediums? Because that is exactly what will happen if you classify them as public utilities. Classifying social media tech giants as public utilities would have the effect of rewarding bad behavior and destroying any competition that might come along before they ever got a chance to compete. This argument is so stupid and completely contradicts free market values that it doesn't even pass the straight face test. The only reason these content creators want social media to be classified as a public utility is because that if social media saw any kind of real accountability or lost relevance, these content creators would lose their profitability. Advocating to turn social media into public utilities is both self-serving and doesn't solve the problem. More government regulation is never the way forward. Now, why do I think everyone else is missing the point? Well, it's because they are. They're bitching about a YouTuber without recognizing what Alex Jones censorship truly is. It's just the latest act in a series of acts of war against the United States Constitution and the American way of life. Now, I know this sounds like tinfoil hat land, but allow me to explain and present my evidence. But before I do, it's important to talk about the Fourth Estate. Yale Law School discusses the Fourth Estate as follows. Beyond the three traditional branches of government, there is another that has often been described as the fourth branch, the free press. Edmund Burke reportedly said there were three estates, But in the reporter's gallery yonder, there sat a fourth estate, more important far than they all. A free press has been a staple of our nation's liberties and history. During the American Revolution, the press provided a key source of information. In fact, it was so important that Congress provided the Continental Army with a printer so that Americans can maintain access to a newspaper during the war. After independence, the press was pivotal in publishing Federalist and Anti-Federalist papers, which provided a staging ground for the ideas that would form this country's Constitution. Further, in 2017, the United States Supreme Court defined social media platforms, namely Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube, as the online public square, and ruled that these online public squares deserve free speech protections. That case was Packingham versus North Carolina. I did a video about this in late October 2017 called The Social Media Constitutional Crisis, my first video, and I discussed this case in great detail. I also did a follow-up video in February 2018 entitled How I'd Sue Twitter If I Were an Attorney. I then published another follow-up video in March 2018 entitled The Legal Controversies Surrounding Social Media Companies. I also followed this up with my June 2018 video entitled Free Speech 1, Twitter 0. All the links to these videos are in the description. As you can see, I've spent a lot of time researching and reporting on these issues. I'm one of the very few content creators who's addressed the legal implications of the social media tech giant censorship. However, even these videos don't address the larger issue. Infowars.com is a news outlet. Alex Jones, love him or hate him, is a journalist by definition. These are not opinions, they're verifiable facts. So when social media tech giants censored Alex Jones and Infowars.com, they censored the free press, the fourth estate, from reporting in the online public square, as defined by the United States Supreme Court, in clear violation of the United States Constitution's First Amendment right to free speech and freedom of press. And social media tech giants did this as a part of a conspiracy to wrongfully influence United States elections, the core of our American democracy, and a clear criminal violation of federal election laws. However, they didn't just target the free press for censorship. Social media tech giants are well documented in targeting of conservative elected officials, media personalities, and even the President of the United States. However, it's worse than even that. Social media tech giants are working in concert with progressives to criminally finance and advocate the violation of the United States immigration laws. One only needs to go to any of their platforms and see multiple propaganda pieces that support this contention. Further, this has been widely reported on by many video content creators and news outlets. To be clear, these are federal crimes. Now, on its face, that's bad enough, but the reality continues to be worse. Breitbart reported that in February 2018, the Mexican authorities began discovering drug cartel weapons manufacturing facilities as far back as 2014. Let that sink in for a moment. MS-13 and other cartels have been manufacturing clones of AK-47s, .223 caliber assault rifles, as well as grenade launchers and other explosive weapons, just across the border in Baja, Mexico, for at least the last 4 years. Now, you're saying, DDJ, that's Mexico. They're not manufacturing weapons in the United States, so what's the big deal? Well, they are manufacturing weapons in the United States. To be clear, illegal immigrant gang members are manufacturing ghost gun assault weapons in the United States. Then once they're manufactured, these gangs are selling these guns on the streets. On July 5th, 2018, NBC Los Angeles reported that a 6-month operation jointly by the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, ATF, and the Los Angeles Police Department Hollywood Division led to the seizure of more than 45 homemade firearms. Detectives said they had learned through tips that parts of homemade guns were being sold on the streets and at gun shows, and then put together for criminal use. Investigators said LAPD officers and ATF agents went undercover to buy these weapons. That led to the arrests of 10 suspects and the seizure of more than 45 firearms and parts, including AR-15s and high-capacity magazines, and the tools to put them together. These homemade guns are being called ghost guns because they can't be traced. Now, the next day, the Los Angeles Daily News identified the suspects as East LA gang members. They report, A months-long investigation into the sales of illegal homemade firearms by an East Los Angeles street gang led to the arrests of 10 people and the seizure of drugs, cash, cars, and dozens of weapons, officials said Thursday. The raids by a task force of local police and federal agents at several undisclosed locations in June and July targeted gang members believed to have been manufacturing what the police called ghost guns, or firearms manufactured at home without serial numbers that are difficult to track. Police filed 47 felony counts against the suspects, including counts of criminal conspiracy, possession of a silencer, and the manufacture, transportation, and sales of assault rifles. These are the assholes the left and social media tech giants are so desperately trying to protect. How many of these weapons are going to get trafficked to Antifa and other domestic terrorists? Now, this isn't a sort of one-off thing. Just a few days ago, the VC Star reported on a Latino in Santa Paula, California, that was also arrested for manufacturing and trafficking ghost guns. They report a Santa Paula man was arrested by federal authorities after a 3-month investigation into illegal firearms manufacturing, authorities said. Gilbert Estrada, 38, a convicted felon, was arrested Wednesday by agents from the U.S. Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, according to the Santa Paula Police Department, which assisted in the joint operation. So I gotta ask, how many more of these cartel-financed weapons manufacturing and gun trafficking facilities are actually in operation in the United States that we just haven't discovered yet? Further, knowing this, and knowing that social media tech giants are financing and advocating for illegal immigration, including known and admitted cartel members, it is clear that this is a large-scale criminal conspiracy to take over our country by force. Make no mistake, these are federal crimes. So, while in the public eye, these social media tech giants and their allies are advocating for the overthrow of our democratically elected government, behind the scenes, these social media tech giants, along with other deep-pocket organizations, are financing and protecting illegal immigrants, including cartel members, gun runners, rapists, and other criminals. It's been well documented that even local police departments are refusing to arrest these criminals and their conspirators. So, now that we have a better idea of the problem, what's the solution? Well, it's certainly not to make social media tech giants public utilities. That's a non-starter and completely fucking retarded. So, let's take a trip to Fantasyland. Imagine, if you will, a world where the United States government wasn't chock full of feminist cucks and socialist infiltrators out to destroy our Constitution and our way of life. In this world, I'm Trump. Here's the 2 solutions I'd consider to address this problem. Remember, this is Fantasyland. First, I would direct the Attorney General to charge these social media tech giants and other advocates of illegal immigration with a conspiracy to violate federal election laws. Then I would immediately freeze their assets using civil asset forfeiture and other laws. Because these social media tech giants are choosing who to publish and who to ban on their platforms, they are, by definition, publishers. And they are publishing propaganda that advocates the overthrow of our government by force, which, by the way, is also a federal crime. I went into this in greater detail in my video entitled When Entryism Becomes Terrorism, which, not surprisingly, YouTube demonetized. A link is in the description. Now, back to Fantasyland. I would show up with as many armed federal officers as necessary to social media tech giant headquarters with search warrants, and I would seize all computers, servers, and documents to preserve evidence. And I would arrest anyone who resisted. I would criminally charge any person who openly advocated for illegal immigration and arrest them as well, including judges, attorneys, politicians, teachers, professors, etc., because their acts constitute an obstruction of justice and advocating federal crime, again, both of which are crimes in and of themselves. Freezing their assets would take down every social media platform that openly advocates and supports federal crime, whether it be illegal immigration or attempting to criminally influence our federal elections. In addition, all these social media tech giants have government contracts. I would immediately cancel them, and I would seek a refund of any monies paid to these criminal enterprises. Now, the second option is just a wee bit more brutal. If I were Fantasy Trump, I would declare martial law because it appears that sanctuary cities, social media tech giants, and their allies have fomented insurrection against the United States Constitution and its government. And instead of showing up to their headquarters with armed law enforcement officers, I would show up with the military. And I would remind anybody who wanted to talk shit that the military doesn't use rubber bullets, and anyone who resists gets a high-velocity facelift. Then I would charge everyone with treason and insurrection. And if I didn't have enough jails to hold all these idiots, I would create camps to store them until they got through the court process. However, back in reality, I don't think anybody in Washington, D.C. has the will to do what must be done to protect our Constitution and American way of life. That said, one thing is for certain. Insurrection in the United States is already happening. Government facilities have already been targeted. ICE and its personnel in Portland, Oregon, the Department of Homeland Security in New York, the local Marine Recruiting Center in California have all been attacked or vandalized. And these are just the ones that have been reported on. I'm sure there's many others we don't know about. GOP politicians were targeted and shot in 2017 while playing baseball. Government-appointed and elected officials have been witch-hunted, stalked, and targeted for harassment by Antifa and other domestic terrorist organizations. Over 540 crimes against Trump supporters have been documented across the United States by Breitbart alone. And don't get me started about the thousands of white people who were targeted at a country music festival by the Las Vegas sniper. In closing, if we allow social media tech giants to continue to censor the Fourth Estate conservative news outlets and journalists, this insurrection against the United States Constitution and our democratically elected government may not be televised. I'm DDJ, and this has been your dose of misandry today.